Hello, everybody. My name is Chris, and welcome back to Learn British English Free on YouTube. This is an English lesson I wanted to do for you regarding the modal verb shall. Now, shall is an older form of word which we don't use so often these days. I wanted to give you insights as a native speaker into how to use it and especially how not to use it, actually. I'll try to be quite short and concise because I believe I can simplify this quite clearly. You can find some useful grammar notes about shall online. It's hard to find good ones in textbooks, actually. It's a bit of a strange word, which is a modal verb, but doesn't often get included in the modal verb sections, I realized. So I'll share a link to a video by another teacher from the Engvid collaboration called Gill. She's also from England, and she previously did one about everything you need to know about how to use shall. But my advice will be slightly different here, and I'm going to move on to that now. The main point is how exactly can we use shall as a native speaker would nowadays, these days, because it's a word which really has become more outdated. If we revisit the former main use of it was often used with the first person, as in I or we shall do something, similar to will. You could use them almost interchangeably. But we don't really use it that day like that nowadays, especially when speaking, but even in writing. A famous example is from The Lord of the Rings. Maybe you know the books and especially the films. Gandalf says to the Balrog on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, "You shall not pass." Now, Gandalf is a cool dude, of course, if you know him, but you don't really want to talk like him in English. Your friends will think you're a bit weird. So my suggestion would be please don't use shall commonly in this way, like in the future structure. We simply don't use it like that anymore. The only way that we normally use it, or at least I do, and that's why I wanted to tell you about it, is in the function of a suggestion or questions. So here's this British example, of course. Shall we have fish and chips for dinner tonight? Now, this could be interpreted in multiple ways. It could be a question or it could be a suggestion. Shall we have fish and chips for dinner tonight? So I could be asking someone, like, do you want to have them? But the most common equivalency, I think, these days would be as should. Should we have fish and chips for dinner tonight? So this would be like a suggestion for someone to agree or disagree, or even like advice. What do you think? I will probably take the advice or take the answer of whoever I'm asking. So we tend to use shall in this structure. I would suggest to think of it mainly nowadays as an equivalency for should in the structure of a question or suggestion. We could also think of it like using let's. Let's have fish and chips for dinner tonight. So we want to change the tone of the statement in this sense to avoid it being a question. And we could make the equivalency rather than should, put let's at the beginning. Let's have fish and chips for dinner tonight. Or shall we have fish and chips for dinner tonight? It's all in the intonation and that dropping at the end that I hope you could hear. And that's actually it. When you watch that video about shall from Gill from Engvid, or you look up some grammar notes online, you will see various uses for it. But my main point here is that we don't use it so commonly these days, especially not in those future structures like we would use will. So please do reduce it. And I'm sure many of you will be wondering, I hear this word shall sometimes, but how do I actually use it? The question is, you don't need to. It will sound a bit old or especially formal. So you can reduce it to those uses, but you don't even really need it. You can use other ones instead. That is the conclusion of this brief talk on shall. I hope it was clear enough. This is my personal opinion and experience and as a native speaker, but I'm guessing it might be useful because I don't think it's covered clearly in other materials. It's one of these contemporary things that has changed over time. Thank you. Please do write a comment or write a question if you need me to follow up or explain things. I do check the comments on YouTube quite regularly, as you may have noticed. I have many more lessons in the pipeline that I have planned that I need to make for you, so I will try to do them in the coming weeks. Please do keep in touch, and I will continue to publish on Learn British English Free. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.